Hello, guten Tag und grüß Gott. Today is Sunday, December the 17th, 2023. And here we are, making another video. I'm graced with the presence of my wife, Marge, and she's going to make sure that I don't put anything in there that is a little bit too controversial or just shouldn't be there.
Oh, like I could stop you.
Yeah, well, that would be hard anyway. But I do depend on her input for all of these things. And so when you see me looking away from the camera, you know I'm looking at her and look at her smile, because you know what? It makes me feel good when she's here. For some reason, the videos just seem to work a little bit better. So what has happened in the last week, that since the last video? Oh, I must not forget that actually there is a white object right here, and I don't know whether you can see this, and that's our ghost, or as we often say, the ghost is with the mostest. Anyway, hopefully he won't disrupt it too much, but he just likes to look out the window here, so it's kind of become his favorite spot. Anyway, so what's going on in the world? I've got a stack of newspapers here, and you know what? The news from week to week just doesn't seem to change very much, So, we are in December right now, and it is, the month of dying still. Here, one of your classmates just recently died.
Nate Garner.
Yeah, Nate Garner died. Her very good friend, ex-friend,
Former fiance.
Former fiance, I was going to say.
David Robb.
David Robb died, and the dying continues. And then I actually want to talk about the central theme of this video will actually be about my mom. Now, I realize it's not Mother's Day or anything like this, but I have to tell you that I've just been overcome with a feeling for my mom and everything that she's done for us, and how she shepherded us through the war. And, and I'm here because of her primarily because of her, because she took our family through the toughest times altogether. When it was all over, my dad showed up, and it was all good, and it was ready to take over, So this is how things happen. But before I get into the details of this, I just want to get back to the Palestinian war a little bit. And I want to show this one more time here, and I want to show this so that it can be seen of what the Palestinians, the Arabs in Palestine want. And what they want is, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Okay, so really what they want is all the Jews gone, or anybody that is not an Arab or Muslim gone. Okay, now you could extrapolate from this little incident, and I'm talking about a little, and of course thousands of people are dying, so it's not a little incident, but you can extrapolate from this relatively small fire in the Middle East, the fire of war. You can extrapolate for that, what is it that the Islamic community really wants? And my guess is they would like to see everybody being obedient to Islam, to the Quran, to Allah, and have the whole world united, maybe with one Ayatollah sitting on top of the world, guiding the flock of humanity. And imagine that. What a bunch of crap that is. It's not going to happen in our house, that's for sure. Right, Mom?
Right.
Not going to happen in our house. We're Christians, and we're going to remain Christians. As a matter of fact, we're thinking about going to the a Christmas Eve festivities or something, if we can find an appropriate church. And it's really difficult because churches have, also their political agendas, and sometimes that doesn't jive with us. So it's going to be difficult to find one, but hopefully we will, because we do believe in a Christian ethic. Isn't that right?
Right.
Okay. So the Palestinian War, I don't know why I call it that, but yeah, it is the war in the Levant. And the Levant has been in uproar, for some time now. Because they're Hezbollah, they're in Lebanon and in the surrounding areas, and they're always trying to figure out, how to get rid of anybody that isn't a Muslim. Anyway, specifically, it's not going that well for either Hamas or the Israelis, because people are dying on both sides. Hamas is putting up a terrible fight because they've been prepared for this, and the Israelis are now thinking about flooding the tunnels. I'm sure they've thought about that before, but who the hell knows where the hostages are? As a matter of fact, one of the strafing incidents, killed a bunch of Israeli hostages because they thought they were, enemy combatants. So this is really a really bad situation. And don't think that the Arabs aren't smart enough, to put lock doors in. I have to tell you, what, from my experience, flooding of the tunnels, 500 tunnels, is really a dicey project, because, I always thought that that in our cabin up north, the ground squirrels, were tunneling underneath our house. Okay, so I thought, well, if they keep on tunneling, pretty soon it'll fall into the tunnels, and so we got to do something about it. So I thought, aha, what am I going to do? I'm going to flood their tunnels, and so I ran the water hose at full stream nearly a day. Now we have a well, okay, so I can do this. We ran it for nearly a day, and, there was no water coming up. There's no water coming up. The squirrels weren't coming up. Nothing was, the water just kind of disappeared. It was gone. And so, so I gave up on that, because it was, evidently they had their own lock doors or whatever, because, in the morning, the ground squirrels were out there happily singing, whistling, and all that, So what did I do? Well, I decided to start shooting them. So I took out my .22, and you know what? These critters are really, really wily, because they keep an eye on you. And they keep an eye on you, and they warn the others, So I had a really tough time. It was really hard to hunt them. And, I shot a few of them because I kept reporting to my wife, another one bites the dust, that kind of thing. And so it, what would happen is they would have lookouts, and wherever they were, and if I showed up outside and I had a gun in my hand, there was a whistle or something, and all of a sudden they all disappeared. So I figured out where the whistle comes from, and it came from that side, so I wouldn't go out the back door, I would go out the front door, and I'd get a couple of them. But you know what? The next day, they were on to me. So I finally decided, this could be my Vietnam. I mean, this is not something I'm going to win. So I was just going to give up with them, and they're there now. And, and tunneling away, whatever they're doing, I'm not molesting them anymore. As a matter of fact, what's really funny is every once in a while I see them, and they now know that I'm no longer a threat. So you can be within 5 or 10 feet of them, and before they duck away. And so what happens now, as I see them, I just kind of tip my hat, and they kind of acknowledge that, and we coexist. Anyway, I had no idea that I was going to talk about ground squirrels on this video, but
you were going to talk about your mom.
I want to talk about my mom. So my mom was born in, as a matter of fact, I've got it written down here, in February 19th, 1913, and unfortunately she passed away in December. Okay, December 17th, 93. So she did make it to 80. Okay, my dad didn't quite make it. He made it to about 74. So he died. My dad died in 86, and she died. So what? 7 years later, So she outlived him for quite a while. But the reason that my dad got sick, he actually wound up with acute leukemia, is because all his life he was exposed to a lot of chemicals. As a matter of fact, so was I. And that's the doctors, when they diagnosed him, they said that this is leukemia acquired. It's not something that was written in his DNA or so. Anyway, so was there anything politically that is noteworthy? The Supreme Court, maybe.
Your mom.
No, let's go back to the Supreme Court.
Oh.
So the Supreme Court has got a decision to make about, help me with this, Mom. It was a big deal, about
guns.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was about the Second Amendment.
Trump.
I think they're going to make a decision on Trump, but you know what? It just eludes me right now. What it was. Maybe it'll come back and I'll talk about it. And I probably have it referenced here in my papers, which I haven't looked at because it's been such a boring week. So let me talk about something I actually know something about, and that's my mom. Okay, my mom. So my mom's mission. She didn't have any choice to accept it. She had to accept it. My dad said, you have 5 boxes, wooden crates of stuff that has to be taken out of Poland and out of Czechoslovakia and brought to Germany. And she says to my dad, how am I going to do this? And he says, well, just bring everything. Okay? And so she did this, And the way she did that is, of course, she couldn't move these boxes by herself, but there was always somebody around, some men, either old men or young men that deserted the army or who knows what. There were always some men around. And what did men work for? Cigarettes. And one of those 5 boxes was actually full of cigarettes. And so she always had a few packs of cigarettes to give out. And that was the coinage of the time, As a matter of fact, right after the war, things, money wasn't really worth much because you couldn't buy much with money, but you could trade, So jewelry, my parents, my dad used to go out and sell jewelry somewhere, maybe on what they call the black market or some sort of a market, and he'd come home with food, And so rings and things like this, would be, sold, for food, because right after the war, when Germany, basically the government collapsed, nobody did anything and nothing moved, and so there was no food, except what you could get, that the farmers grew, As a matter of fact, the time from 45 maybe to 47, 48, maybe all the way to 49 was really starvation in Germany. It was terrible. Oh, okay. So how did my mom do all of that, Because she was in charge of the family by herself since somewhere in 44.
How many kids were there at that time?
So at that time, she had 3 kids. And she was by herself because my dad was kind of on a run, we knew that the war was lost, and he wasn't about to be drafted to be sent as cannon fodder, So he kind of, avoided being notified. Okay, it's not that. So that's a fine line, between draft dodging and that kind of thing. but he thought he would be drafted, and so he didn't open any mail, and he moved around a lot. Finally, he did wind up in, I think it was in Berchtesgaden, so in one of the Jewish camps, no, it wasn't in Berchtesgaden, no, that wasn't even a camp. Anyway, it was in one of the camps, for prisoners, like undesirables and Jews. He wound up as well, because they, once they released all these people, and they used them, to basically rounded up any young men or draft age people, because they wanted to know, whether there's some Nazis, really heavy duty Nazis hiding. Let me get back to my mom. So how did she do this? Well, I have to tell you this, is that my mom basically supported us for probably a period of nearly a year or so by being a fortune teller. Yeah, my mom, the fortune teller, so it turns out that she, when we made it to Thüringen, which we thought at the time was Schönstadt, Thüringen from Czechoslovakia, which was occupied by the Russians, and then Thüringen, which was, Thüringen is actually East Germany, but it wasn't occupied by the Russians because it was actually occupied by the Americans. And I think it was Patton that was up in there. And so we thought we'd made it to the American zone, and life was good, but she needed to be able to move from Thüringen all the way west, to, either Heidelberg, Stuttgart, or somewhere in there. Those details, of how they decided that, where they needed to go and so forth, they're elusive to me because I don't know them. Okay, the prison that my dad was in, it just came to me, was Dachau. Okay, so he actually spent time in Dachau, and that's where he was kind of denazifiziert, which, they, looked into his background and so on and so forth, and then let him go. And so anyway, so what would happen is that my mom, in Schönstadt, of course, she, by that time she'd run out of money, and so I don't know whether she totally ran out of money or not, but as I said, you couldn't really do much with money. So how did she feed the family? Well, she would tell fortunes, okay? So what happened is she would read cards. She had cards that she would lay out, and people would ask questions, and she would have answers. And all the women wanted to know what happened to their husbands. Is the husband alive? Is the husband dead? And so forth. And somehow she hit on sufficient incidents where she told somebody something that was going to happen in the future, like your husband is alive, he's coming, and the husband was alive and is coming, or the husband, sorry, is dead, and that she was notified then. So all you needed at the time, I presume, just a few incidents like this, and she had a reputation of being a fortune teller that knew the future. Okay, and that's what she did with her cards, and that's how Mom got us out of Schönstadt eventually, and we were alive there, and got us out. So look at her situation at the time. I was 5 going on 6. Walter was just born. He was a baby. And Heinz, he actually died in Zwickau because we both had diphtheria, and we were in a hospital together. I remember it well. Heinz was in the bed next to me, and I remember his singing. He was singing. My mom always said that he sang like an angel. And then one day he was gone. Of course, Mom was crying and everything, you know, I need to talk about Heinz a little bit because he and I played together. So he was 2 years younger. He was 3, I was 6. You know, that kind of thing. And you know, but this was a really smart little dude, you know, because he invented the games for us to play with. You know, in other words, I followed him. Okay, you know, I followed what he did, and my mom could send him to the store to buy stuff. Okay, okay. Be a good boy. So our ghost has seen something outside, you know. And anyway, sorry about that. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. I don't know. Do we have to edit this out? Maybe
No.
not. Oh, what
It's
the heck?
just the dog.
It's just a dog. Okay. Yeah. So Heinz, you know, my mom could send him with money to the grocery store and get food, you know, because if she sent me, she found out, you know, that I would have a, you know, things I would be overcome by events, you know, and either I lose the money or I come back with nothing, or, you know, I would. Anyway, it was a fiasco, you know. So he got to go, you know. So I don't know what would have happened had he lived beyond 3, you know. So I was the oldest, you know. I remember, you know, when the in Schoenstatt, where we were, you know, the Russians came, and you know, the incident that sticks so in my mind was, you know, I looked out the window, and I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, why do the Jeeps have red star on them instead of white stars?" And she looked at and said, "Oh my God, the Russians are here." So that's how East Germany was then occupied by the Russians, and so that's again we had to leave because. But you know, in Schoenstatt, the Russians actually treated the Germans very well, because I think maybe some of the hatred, you know, maybe it wasn't gone altogether, but they put up a Christmas party for us. I remember. You know, they put up a Christmas party with, you know, the Russian soldiers there, and they had toys for us. I remember getting a painted little truck, you know, probably German toys, you know, from the Erzgebirge, you know. So, but nevertheless, it was pretty, and there was ice cream, and there was you know, cookies, this kind of thing. So, and I actually started my first couple of weeks of school there. But then you know, my mom packed it up and we left. It's because all the Germans left, you know. It was not the Germans that came from the east. The locals, you know, well, they just stayed, you know. And Schoenstatt was a farming community, and they had probably, I was just remarking, you know, that things may not have changed for them very much, because they were food producers. Everybody needs food, right? You know, so. Anyway, so my mom, she was a spiritual person, and she was in touch with something, you know, that was bigger than all of us, because actually she read cards for herself and then said to my dad, "Oh my God, he's having an affair." And when my dad heard that, he took her cards away and burned them. I think I'm done here now. So with that, I wish you farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. And till so long for next time.